Okay, welcome everybody to this episode of the Book Marketing Success Podcast. Today I have an incredible guest, Mustafa Ammar. He's the author of a new book called Time to Move On: The Seven Career Myths Keeping You from Finding Your Dream Job and What to Do About It. And he has this amazing thing to talk about in terms of career shapeshifting. He's been an amazing career shapeshifter of his own, going from being a pharmacist to a diplomat in China, Malawi, and the UN, also being an investment banker in the Asian Infrastructure Bank, and now a coach and a book author. Mustafa, I want you to talk today a little bit about career shapeshifting, both in terms of what you did, but also how other people can follow your example and have the same kind of
Sure.
success as you've had.
Sure. Thank you, John. It's really a pleasure being with you today. I'm such a big fan for a long time, and when I was transitioning from my third life to my fourth life, I got introduced to your work, your book, and many other things that really transformed me. So let's say in reincarnation vocabulary, I lived five career lives. I started my first life as a pharmacist out of passion for chemistry. The moment I graduated as a pharmacist, I knew that this is not for me, and I really wanted to have another career. And after a year and a half of reflecting, praying, and meditating, I got into diplomacy. I took 3 years and a half while working as a pharmacist, preparing myself to be a diplomat. Luckily enough, with all the challenges, uh, all people discouraging you from achieving your dreams, I did it. I got chosen as one of 20 of 30 diplomats out of 2,000 contestant. Um, I enjoyed 10 years of diplomacy. So I work in Malawi, as you mentioned, in the UN in New York, also in China. And in China, at some point, I thought I reached the peak of my career. Um, I got into also a transitional period where I'm asking always myself the question of what's next. The answer came through investment banking. So I moved to a multinational development bank. It's very similar to the World Bank, and it was in its first year of operation, 2016. So I was so lucky to be in a startup multinational development bank. So learn a lot about how to build an MDB or a multinational development bank, how to put policy, how to find business, across the whole map. So we were in China, so I was traveling um, uh, in Asia, in Latin America, in the Middle East, in Europe to find projects. It was a very interesting period. And I thought doing my MBA during that time would, um, inform me and help me to grow more in my career. But what happened is doing an MBA is like knocking on different doors. So you're exploring different possibilities of yourself in the future. And I decided after 4 years that, okay, I'm leaving both banking and diplomacy because I was still on leave from diplomacy, and I start my own business. And this is how I came up with the idea of shape shifting. So I saw myself reinventing myself a few times, uh, very drastic transitions, very drastic career change. And I learned the hard way, first of all, how to bust and debunk some of those myths that we used to believe in. And secondly, how to capitalize on my experiences and transfer my skills with me wherever I go. Of course, I would jump into, in the next few minutes, we jump into shape shifting and how we define that.
Well, I mean, you are an amazing shapeshifter. All the things you've done and been successful in is really inspiration to a lot of people. And you tell your story in your book, but the whole idea of you started off with your book being all about time to move on. You need to think
Yes.
about, is there another career you want to do? Is there something you
Yes.
want to do differently than what you've been doing? And even within, say you're working in a corporation, you can still career shapeshift and stay in
Exactly.
that corporation. There are a lot of people that have done a wide variety of jobs in different corporations or small
Exactly.
businesses and so on. And I really think that it's a great opportunity. I think almost every book author is ultimately a career shapeshifter
Exactly.
because they didn't start off as book authors.
Exactly. Exactly. And the call to be a shapeshifter is a call to go back to our human nature. So if we look back into history, so human history, all the civilization in the past were characterized by the abundant number of shapeshifters, or we call them polymath. And polymath was somebody who has in-depth knowledge in different domains and different industries, or able to connect the dots between and among those industries. If we look back at the old Egypt, if you go back to the Greek civilization, the Roman, the Renaissance man or woman, every single civilization is characterized by that big number of polymath or shapeshifter. What happened is the last 200 years, for very several reasons, people were somehow forced for specialization, towards specialization, and that actually is helping the whole economy to be more productive, and it's understood from that point of view. But then also, if we look back at the last 3.5 or 4 years since the pandemic, there are some economic trends like the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, where millions of people are leaving their jobs willingly without any alternative. And when I look at those data research, look at reasons behind this, it was like people got some time to spend on their own. We are locked down, we are just at home for some time. So people started figuring out that this is not what we signed up for. Like, okay, I've been here in this industry for 10, 15, 20 years, and it's enough. And enough means maybe they don't know where to head, but enough means enough, right? And I see the reasons if like people want to go back to their human nature, which is being shapeshifter. If I would argue, I would say that specialization is for ants and bees, but humans are created to be shapeshifters.
It's a real part of it, I think, and it's I think one of the motivations for certainly people like me that write books, that when we started writing books, it was just an opportunity to move into another area
Exactly.
and explore more deeply. And I know I'm sort of a shapeshifter because, I'm known for writing books on how to market books, but,
Yes.
you know, I have about 40 books I'm working on, and they're in a wide range of fields. And,
Exactly.
it's a kind of thing that you just want to explore your human nature, as you say. And that means that you want to move out into different areas. How
Exactly.
does, if you're stuck in an ordinary job, uh, something like that, how do you shapeshift? How do you start that process?
Well, I think the first step is to start disbelieving in those myths, which I mentioned in the book, and I'll just give a few examples. So, for example, the supreme specialist myth. We just talk about shape shifting, which is the other side of being a specialist. Also, myth called "it's too late to change," right? So I've seen a lot of people around like saying, "Oh, I wish if I could, but it's too late for me." Um, Another myth, which I like to call, it's every change is a sunk cost. So if I change, it means that I left all those skills or the status, the power that I have in that industry. I'm starting from scratch. So once you start busting a myth by a myth, one by one, it's a kind of releasing, your career breaks. It's like, you are going full speed without, pushing ahead. But what I want to ask here is, first step, start disbelieving those myths. The book is helpful in this. The second step is to do an orientation process. And I would just give an example of our orientation. And let's, for example, imagine that we are driving a car together for thousands of miles. Um, I assume we need three essential elements to reach our destination. Number one, enough gas. Number two, GPS tracker. Number three, a final destination we just put at the end, right? Without enough gas, we run out of gas at some point, somewhere in the middle. We wouldn't know how to continue forward. And without a GPS tracker, we will get lost somewhere in the middle, maybe dozens or even hundreds of times. Maybe you will never get to your destination, your final destination, right? And the final destination is you really needed to put it in the GPS, because there's no benefit of having a GPS, right? And you need to put that final the address. So let's apply this to on our careers, our life. Enough gas means enough passion for whatever you're doing, because if you don't have enough passion, you will stop somewhere in the middle. The symptoms may be looking something like burnout or lack of productivity or many other symptoms. But if you go back and look at the root causes, it's a lack of passion for whatever you're doing. Number two, your GPS are your values. The majority, many people work in places that the values of the corporations or the corporates is not in line with their values. Some other people are working somewhere and they don't know their values quite well. So if your career doesn't satisfy your values, you will get lost somewhere in the middle. And a final address, a mistake that a lot of people do is they don't really spend enough time on understanding and visualizing their ideal lifestyle. Let's say 5 years from now, where I want to live, what's my ideal house, how is my ideal working day looks like, how is my ideal weekend looks like. And if we imagine those are like three circles together, your top passions, your top core values, and also a final destination, they would intersect somewhere in the middle. And this is where you want to be in the coming, I don't know, 5 years or so. This is where you want to spend some time. So I see the first step is to bust the myth. Second step is to have a proper orientation.
In your own life, you had some transitions that took several years, and some
Yes,
transitions that seemed like they just took a month or two. I presume that that depends on how firmly you decided that, oh, I want to
exactly,
move on, and you had an opportunity somewhere
exactly.
to move on. I mean, in my own career, at one point, I was, teaching, and
Yeah,
then suddenly I got an opportunity to work with a friend, and he needed help on marketing, and that's
exactly.
where I learned marketing.
Open all the doors.
Eh,
Exactly.
I
Okay.
was just helping my friend out. And that, of course, ultimately led to me writing the book, 1001 Ways to Market Your Books, because
Exactly.
I learned marketing helping a friend start up a small toy and gift company. And so I didn't really, but all along in my life, I've always wanted to be a writer. Uh, Even before college, that was sort of my desire.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have always defined it that way. Oh, I want to write books or so on. But it's something that does happen, and
Exactly.
it's interesting in my own mind. I can write nonfiction books up to yin yang, but if it's fiction, I get to 1,000 words and I'm done.
Wow. Exactly.
And I'm
Exactly.
going, okay, that was a short story. That wasn't a novel. Um,
Exactly.
And I think if I really sat down and spent the time to learn the craft of writing a novel, I could probably do it. But
Yeah.
I don't really have the passion for it. Like you said, the one of the first steps is
Yes.
you have to
Yes.
have a passion. You have to decide. I mean,
Exactly.
you started off as a pharmacist and you said, "Nah, I think I'm bored.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
Very agree.
science, but this wasn't quite right for me." And then you moved into what many people would say is a completely different field, being a diplomat and, spending the time to learn the process.
Yeah.
And then, you said it took you a year and a half to finally, be, you were raising your hand, but you were also learning things. And I think
Exactly.
that that's
Exactly.
part of it. If you want a
Great.
career shapeshift, you probably have to spend some time reading books, studying other people,
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
being under their mentorship, and so on. And I think you're right about it. Well, in your book, you thank some of the people that helped you in your journey in writing the book. And you obviously chose some incredible mentors like Jack Canfield and Ivan Meisner and other people that helped you to become a book author and hopefully now a successful book author.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, I mean, the idea of like when you want to learn a skill and by learning how to shapeshift quicker and more efficient, there's no time to waste on learning something for 10 years. You really have to learn very fast. Um, so if you want to shapeshift in one life, 6, 7 lives, then the span of 5 to 7, maximum 10 years for each career is enough. And I thought by starting, the moment I started learning about how can I write a book, and I thought if I want to write a book, I don't want to write a book that just my parents read, and I want to write a book that is impactful, that really helps people. And then I asked the next question: how to learn fast the craft and how to write a book, how to market the book. Um, and then somehow I got introduced to Jack Canfield work, Steve Harrison. They did a lot of work together. Um, of course, Ivan Meisner and many other authors. And then luckily I got also introduced to your work. So I started thinking, writing a good book, marketing a good book from day one. And it's a process that you get to evolve and learn a lot. So 100% 3 years ago, I wasn't close enough to what I'm doing right now. But then by time learning from the best people, you can learn so fast, so efficient, and use your pool of skills that you have with you. They will never disappear. They will always transfer with you in many forms and adds up to them.
I think every author is forced to become a career shapeshifter, not just in because they become a writer, but they
Yes,
also at some point have to understand at least a little bit about how to market their books and how to go
exactly,
about essentially becoming a business
exactly,
person as well, whether you're
exactly,
selling the rights to a publisher or you're self-publishing or using one of the other options out there. um,
exactly.
you're not just a writer.
That
you're
100%.
you
And
become a
by being a
speak.
shapeshifter, you are you are creating more options for you, right? More choices for you, and you are enjoying doing different things around the same time, rather than just being a specialist in one tiny specialization, are not able to scale a business or write in out of your expertise. As you said, you've written dozens of books in many different right domains, and you're still enjoying. So
Yes, and part of my journey was just going from writing books to marketing them, and
yes,
then
yes,
you know about halfway through, or eh, probably not exactly halfway through, the internet came about, and
yeah,
all of a sudden, marketing opened up in a way that it hadn't before,
yeah,
because you could reach people around the world, which I've done with you,
exactly,
I've done with
exactly,
other people. I have clients around the world, um, people in India, South Africa, you in Italy right now, in Egypt, Australia, Switzerland, Russia, etc. People that
exactly,
I've worked with because the internet came about and opened up all kinds of doors. But then you
agree,
learn another set of skill sets, and
agree,
you become a podcaster, you become a speaker, things
yeah.
like that. I mean, when I first started speaking, I had fluttery stomach, I was ready to throw up, or something like that.
Yes.
But now I kick people off the stage so I can get on.
Exactly.
And so you have to keep, in a sense, shape shifting. It's almost forced on you,
Yes,
through technological advance, through the desires of what you want to do. And if
exactly,
you're a writer, you
exactly,
want to reach out and
exactly,
you have to figure out, okay, how do I get people to read my incredible book?
exactly, exactly.
In
And
your
and you
case,
said
it's
it.
called, let me just make a little pitch
Sure,
for you,
sure.
Time to Move On. And you can see
Exactly.
it up there over his right shoulder, his book there. And, that's really part of the whole thing is that you really do, I think your book, Time to Move On, you're basically saying, you
Yes,
know, every once in a while it's time to move on.
exactly, exactly. You just said it a few minutes ago that you were taking opportunities. You're helping a friend in marketing, and somehow that open up, a whole big door and opportunity for you. So also one of the virtues of shapeshifters is they can smell the opportunity. They can see the opportunity from far away, if I would say. And take the small opportunity. Don't bother trying to forecast how that will have an impact on your career, but just enjoy the learning opportunity that you're having. And I assume this is a universal law for the universe, that the universe doesn't send you the big opportunity unless send you a smaller one. If you take on the smaller one, benefit from it, and learn from it, grow, you will be able to get the bigger opportunity somewhere down the road. But if you ignore the small opportunity, if you don't take it, you're not prepared to see even the other opportunity when it comes. Uh, so I see this as a law that keep repeating itself, and always having this exploration phase of taking on smaller opportunities. As you said, why not, if I want to learn a bit about a specific skill like AI, why not just to go out and read three best-selling books about it and just get a course in Stanford about it and get to learn a bit and see how that can benefit you. Um, if it helps in many way, that's fine. If it doesn't help, no knowledge is, will disappear. You will have it with you. So I see this as a virtue of all shapeshifter. They always try to sniff around for opportunities, even if they are very, very small.
Well, I wrote the book, 1001 Ways to Market Your Books, but I didn't
Yes.
stop there. I mean, I've
Yeah.
spent, like you, I've read a lot of books. I've taken a lot of courses. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on just learning the new things, the things that the new technologies and so on. I'm still in the beginning stages of learning how AI can make a difference.
Yes.
But, you know, almost everyone I know in internet marketing nowadays, they have a course on AI.
Yeah.
They're really falling into it, and an integral part of their new courses
Agree.
is about AI and how it can shift what you're doing.
Agree.
And
Agree.
but again, AI is just in its beginning stages,
Yes.
and it's really shifting a lot,
Exactly.
and it's shifted a lot in just 6 months. And so it's
Exactly. Agree. Agree.
and I found
Um,
the same thing true with internet marketing when I first started off, and at one point I learned how to design my own website and take take my hand in doing that, and I had hired somebody to do it, but then I got impatient waiting for them to do things.
to do it.
And I think one of my things with career shapeshifting is just my impatience.
Exactly. 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 And also at the same time, your willingness to learn very fast, because you really wanted to have it done very, very quickly. So, okay, how can I learn this and get it done?
Yes, and I've had a lot of one of the really neat things I think about career shapeshifting
Yes.
is the
Yeah.
wonderful people I've met.
Yeah.
And, people like Jack Canfield that, gosh, I just love the man, and
Yeah.
there are people like that, Joel Comm in internet marketing. And now he's
Exactly.
not in internet marketing anymore. He's into the blockchain and
Exactly.
things like that. And so a lot of the people that I've known in internet marketing are starting to move on to something else that they found a passion for.
Exactly.
And I think that you find the same thing happening with authors, that authors
Agree.
start off writing books, but they end up becoming teachers or mentors or coaches or other things like that.
Exactly.
And certainly you're doing that. I'm not sure which came first, but you've been doing a lot of coaching. You're also writing, and you're thinking about now writing some fiction.
exactly. So it's something I never thought to write, but fiction is fabulous in a way that it transfer, and you can, you can transfer your idea in many different ways, and actually, like it or not, people like to read fiction, and like, even if I always focus on non-fiction, but still fiction is popular, and people like it. um, I would also say that learning fast and seeing the future trends and what is happening in the future, and being able to forecast the future, that also a virtue of a shapeshifter. And when you see that the future 5 years from now, 10 years from now, where will be different in different ways, you prepare yourself for that. And as we said, AI, for example, it's not only the future, is present. So building your next business, your next startup, without having that component in, means that you'll not be able to compete 2 3 years down the road, right? So also, it's a virtue of being a shapeshifter is forecasting the future, seeing what will happen, seeing the trends, then come back and plan for that future right now.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot with different people and how they've shifted. I mean, even Jack Canfield, he shifted from being a speaker at one point
Yes,
to being an author. And
exactly,
probably one of the most successful authors of all time.
exactly,
Uh, I mean, just in the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, they've sold over 700 million copies.
exactly.
It doesn't take long, you know, and it's interesting. He was actually forced to sort of career shapeshift within the Chicken Soup when one of
Yeah,
my friends came along and said, Jack and Mark, they were doing Chicken Soup for the Soul one, two, three, four.
exactly.
That was
Three.
sort of their thought. And then my friend came along and she said, well, you should do a chicken soup for the women's soul.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
suddenly, the most successful book in their franchise is that
exactly,
book that was brought to
exactly,
them by, Marcy Shimoff, that said, you need
exactly,
to do something a little bit different. And
exactly,
that got them into, so many other books, the pet lovers book, the military lovers book, et cetera, et
exactly.
cetera. And, that had to be exciting to go through that shift and in a
Exactly.
sense be dragged along almost kicking and screaming to even
Exactly.
greater success because somebody came and said, hey, how about this? And that's what you were saying. You need to be open to those changes. You need to
Yeah,
be open to the possibility that you're not just say a book author, but you're a speaker, you're a
exactly,
podcaster, you're an
exactly,
internet marketer, you're a coach, and so on. And I think most authors who are really successful shapeshift from being just an author to being many, many other, wearing many different other
many
hats.
hats, exactly, many different hats. I agree. And I recall also another story with Jack. Uh, so he has, written dozens of Chicken Soup for the Soul, but at some point, himself, Patty Aubrey, Janet Switzer, the whole team were discussing how to reinvent ourselves. Like, and okay, what if I want to go out of this? So they had a very long conversation, ended up, coming up with the success principles. So it wasn't really easy because they had a brand, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and it was so successful. And at some point, they had to reinvent themselves in a new way. So they shape shifted, towards a whole new industry of coaching, the success principles. Now they have dozens of thousands of people who are actually teaching, are licensed teaching the success principles. I'm actually one of them, and it's a whole new story of success as well. So also, shapeshifters know when to switch, even if they are successful in what they are doing, but they can sense that they reach the peak of their career and there is a need to change and shapeshift in a way. So kudos to them as well because they were able to do it several times.
Yeah, and I've been going through that process myself because I'm bored with marketing.
Yeah, yeah,
So 1,001 ways to market your books. I'm not sure I want to do an eighth edition.
yes, yes,
I
yeah,
think, there's more things I want to do with my life. And so,
exactly.
you know, and for me, part of that has been, a real dramatic transition. I want to write about prayer
Yeah,
and the power of prayer,
talk
which
about of
is,
prayer.
and people would say, well, what does that have to do with marketing? And, you know, a friend said, one of the best things you can do if you want to market your books is call 1-800 prayer. It wasn't that 800 number, but it was a prayer line. He said,
Yeah,
if you need help, call the prayer line and they can help you with your
exactly.
marketing. And,
That's true.
I sort of, I'm a firm believer in the power of prayer, and I really want to spend some time. I'm getting up there in the years, so I want to spend a little time talking about
Yes,
prayer and
yes.
consciousness and in changing lives in other ways. So I probably won't do a new edition of 1,001 Ways. I know people keep begging me to do another one,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm bored.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And it's we are back to our human nature, right? We get bored quickly. We cannot do the same thing all our life. We expect to do different things and connect those things. And at the end of the day, you go back to all your work or your, books, and you see the diversity, they see the fulfillment that you have, that you were able to pursue different things.
And I think that's really part of the joy of life.
Yes.
It's that ability to shapeshift periodically.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you give up on what you've been doing. I mean, I'm still
Exactly.
helping people market their books. I'm still writing about marketing. I still have
Yes. Yeah.
I'm still blogging about it. I'm doing
Yeah.
podcasts about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
etc. So it's not like I'm abandoning it, but I am shapeshifting to
Exactly.
not just writing books about it, but actually teaching people through my newsletter, my website, and my podcast.
Exactly. And the danger of over specialization, and people stay in the same industry thinking that change is risky. uh, like right now we see what's happening with AI, machine learning, and technological advancements. So actually numbers are huge, are scary. That it's expected that 1.1 billion jobs by 2030 either will be completely disappeared or uh, completely transform in many different ways just because of technological advancement. So my question would be, what if your job goes extinct if you don't have other options? But on the other side, if you are shapeshifters, in mythology, shapeshifter is right, a being that is able to change his or her form in many different ways, which means you are immortal. So as a human being, you still have that immortality that you can, change and shift your career a few times. And also you are more in control over your career decisions and you have options to choose from, right?
I did something like that when I sold my original publishing company to one of my assistants and moved on to create a new publishing company. And that was all part of it, was that I was tired of managing people, and I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
wanted to write and publish and do it that way. So for the past 20 years I've been a one person publishing company. And
yes,
the neat thing is that in today's world, especially with things like Ingram Spark and so on, you don't have to do all the things that you used to have to do when I
yeah,
started off.
yeah,
Where
yeah,
if you wanted to, I would, when I started off, I had to do it with direct marketing,
yes,
send
yes,
out 10,000 letters to people, things like that, and arrange a distribution system and so on. And now with Ingram Spark, your distribution is handled. You don't really have to worry about it. It's
yeah,
not necessarily as good as having a distributor, but it's good enough
yeah,
if
yeah,
you create the market for what you're doing. And
Exactly.
that's part of it. To me, it's kind of nice to have things go, like you said, well, what if your job gets
Yeah.
destroyed? And I'm going, when? Sooner, the better.
Yeah.
Because then I can move on and I feel good about it, you know.
Exactly.
So I
Exactly.
think, at least for me in career shapeshifting, I've never worried about being out of a job because you just create a new one.
Agree. I agree. I agree. And we talk a bit about reading the future. I think it's a skill that shapeshifter has and learn how to develop, because it's always about forecasting what will happen in the future and seeing what kind of impact you would have. So if you see that direction is going somewhere and not able to have an impact on that, so how you can have more options for yourself. And then also reading that future and seeing a problem that is about to happen and finding a solution for it and preparing the solution when the problem is there, I think also is a skill that any shapeshifter can learn.
Well, it was one of the things that really helped me when I first started out with 1001 Ways, because at that time, the options of publishing were very small. You either sold to a
Yeah.
big publisher or you spent a lot of money self-publishing.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
it was only when the internet came about that the marketing became really actually feasible for many small time authors and selling
Exactly.
direct to people. And there are so many people now, first time novelists that have become successful just selling
Exactly.
books, ebooks on Amazon. So
Exactly.
the fact that Amazon came about, and then, obviously all the things that are happening with internet marketing, but then print on demand happened. And that
Yes.
really changed the game. Ebooks
Yeah.
and print on demand made it possible for anybody to publish. And
Exactly.
now Ingram Spark is telling people, we're not going to charge you to upload a book. So the
Yes.
cost of entry is now zero. You
Almost
know,
exactly. Exactly. Almost zero.
I mean,
Exactly.
technically it's not zero. I mean, you
Yeah.
still have to write. You have to decide if you're a good editor or cover
Exactly.
designer on your own, or do you hire somebody? And in most cases, especially with cover design, I would say hire somebody. Um,
Yes.
but even most writers would actually be better off with an editor
Yeah.
at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And
Completely.
so those are some of the things you'd have to make decisions on. So there's still cost to entry if you want to do it really well. But gosh, I mean, there are a million books being published on Amazon now as ebooks every year. And I would say about 80% of them are terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
edited, and,
Agree.
now people are teaching courses saying, oh, you can use AI to write your book. And so now people are thinking, okay, and I'm sort of on the side of the movie industry, so I've been reading
Yeah.
about that, and the movie industry is worried that people, are the script writers, are people going to use AI to write the movie?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the thing is that when you use AI to write a book or write a movie, you still have to have your intelligence, somebody, a human intelligence,
Of course.
shape the
Of
book,
course.
shape the
Of course.
movie, and so on. So I don't think we as writers are going to be out of business for a long, long time, even with
I,
ChatGPT and other AI programs.
I agree with you, and I always think about this. Is like I wrote a book that is mostly based on my experiences, my the hardships and the challenges and the adversities that I've been through and overcome, and the failures and all of those stories. And no AI, how smart it is, can write a similar story, because it's the story of your hardships, is a story of years and years and years of learning and learning by doing failure. So always the uniqueness in every author's story is his or her hardships and challenges and what you learn the hard way. I don't think AI can compensate that. At the end of the day, AI can write a very general book about how to change your career, or so using the domain, all the info that are on the domain, but will not be able to go through all those hardships and all those details because it's still as not as smart as human.
And I think it would be hard for AI. I know that there are probably some AI novels out there now, but to me, a novel is about human life.
Yes,
And I'm not sure how AI can replicate the living experience that the authors go through that lead them
yeah,
to write fiction
yeah,
and
yeah,
so on. So it will be interesting to see how it shapes up. I can see how AI can help somebody write a novel, help them to
yes,
plot out something and so on. And so, I think of it as a tool. In fact, going to be using AI and probably in the next couple months to do a couple graphic novels. So I'm going to become a
that's
novelist.
cool. That's
But
cool.
it's basically I'm taking one of my short stories and creating a
And
graphic
then
novel
expanding
out
on
of
exactly
it.
and
And so I'm
expanding on that.
using the images which AI can generate to create a graphic novel, and so I'll become
This
a
is cool.
novelist
This is
through the
cool. This
through
is
the
really
back
cool.
door, you know.
Exactly.
But that's the things that can happen, and but that is part of being open to shape
Exactly.
shifting. And
Exactly.
you know, your concept of career shape shifting to me is just a really great thing, and I talked to you about that when we started consulting, and I said, you're really onto something here, and you should be in the forefront of it and leading the
Thank you, John.
charge. and
Thank you,
and
John. Like
that's what you're doing.
exactly, like talking on forecasting the future. This is how I see the future market is, and I see the future of work is shape shifting, and we need as many shapeshifter. Like if right now we have 8 billion people at almost 2.8 billion of them are full-time workers. So in the future, if that number doubled or so, we need almost half of them as shapeshifters. So it's really the future of work, and also thinking how to scale that service and help as many people to become shapeshifters. This is how I ended up starting my fifth career life. So right now I'm building a tech startup where hopefully all the knowledge and the feedback I got from people that I used to coach and train, I would, have it and reflected on a platform where hopefully that platform can help as many people, not hundreds as it used to be in the coaching case, hopefully thousands and hundreds of thousands as well.
Oh, will that tech platform be open to other people?
Of course, of course. So the idea is to economize the cost and the price of changing your career and make it easier and smoother for everybody. And hopefully we have millions of people who would shift in a smooth way, bust the myth, and then do the orientation in a, like, let's say a couple of hours using AI as we we were talking, and then also do the transformation in the shortest period ever, learn skills efficiently, fast, and then we have as many shapeshifters as we could.
So you're going to create a world of shapeshifters.
I hope so. Hopefully toward 1 billion shapeshifters.
That would be great. So we've been talking with Mustafa Ammar, author of Time to Move On, and the 7 career myths that keep you from finding your dream job and what to do about it. And Mustafa, I really enjoyed talking with you and having a conversation with you. I hope I didn't uh, talk too much myself, but I'm
No,
enthusiastic about what you're doing and the whole idea of career shapeshifting. So I really encourage the people that are listening in here to check out Mustafa. What website would you? Are you ready to announce a website yet?
sure. Thank you so much, John. So I have my website, thepassionmba.com, also mustafaammar.com. Both of them has uh, the book, and also they have some of those downloadable report, like the 10 top mistakes to avoid when planning your career transition. and several other interesting stuff like doing a quiz to know what's your next dream career. So a few of other interesting stuff.